Very nice to have you all. It's our first panel in Berlin. I'm Joseph, and this is our Homo Sound panel in collaboration with Most Wanted, which is a music conference that is running this week in Berlin, and also sponsored and offered by RSO. We have Daniela Cia from Triangle Agency, we have Liz from Macorma and Exhale, and Henning Baer from RSO as well. I will let the panelists introduce themselves before we start with questions. And as I mentioned before, Jamaica will come in a second and will also join the discussion.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming tonight. It's a lot of people, I wasn't expecting it. So my name is Daniela Cia. I'm a business partner of a booking agency / management company called the Triangle Agency based in Berlin. I landed in Berlin a few years ago because I love music more than anything. And this is how it all started. I hope I can share with you something about what I learned here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Cyprian. I work for Macorma Artist Management, specifically managing a brand called Exhale by Amelie, which is an event series, record label, and apparently merchandise and apparel line as well now. And before that, I was working for a festival called the BPM Festival as a talent buyer. I'm very excited to be here and equally surprised there's so many people here, actually.
Thank you. Henning?
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. My name is Henning Baer. I'm a producer and DJ, but since we basically reopened the club RSO, I'm also head of bookings here together with an amazing team. I'm in Berlin now since 19 years and promoting an event series called Grounded Theory since 2009. So yeah, excited to later on, or like now, talk a little bit about our experiences, and then later on answer a few questions.
Mm-hmm. And the last guest who was joining us is Jamaica Suk, who is also a producer, an artist, a performer, and also runs a label called Gradient. And she's also the resident of Pornceptual, which is a party in Berlin. So let's start with some questions. The world has changed considerably in the last 2.5 years. Of course, everybody knows the pandemic happened. Music industry took a huge hit. Everybody in general felt pretty shit because of what happened. The music industry, we stopped partying for close to 2 years. Fast forward to now, we started again going to parties, having events like this, but also like proper parties and longer parties. And a lot has changed. We are in a different environment. A lot of people maybe moved out of the scene. A lot of new people are entering. So Liz, I know you are putting on an event, a big event that is upcoming. And for you, how much has changed from before the pandemic?
Well, first of all, I was so happy to delete that COVID tab I had in my Excel about all of the entrance policies and things like that. But yeah, just to also elaborate on what Henning said, like, we're living these fast-paced lives, and we're not the only industry in this, and we're not the only industry that's most of us have our passion, our hobby, and our job all revolving around the same thing. So yes, it was shocking when this halt came. And now that things have been coming back, I mean, I think the hardest thing was getting used to the pace again. And it was kind of like you had a few months in 2021 where it was like back, and then it was gone again. And then 2022, at least from my experience, this summer was incredible, but incredibly intense. And you were like, holy, this is what it was like every day for all the years before this. And wow, exactly, how do I manage this now? What did I learn during the pandemic about how I manage my stress, how I manage my time? Where do I put my resources? Where do I have my artists put their resources? And how do we still make something, productive isn't the right word, but how do we still celebrate something together, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, for us now planning with the events, it's like, you just understand people are not going to go out as much as they used to, actually. They're not going to go to clubs for 3 nights a week, myself included. Like, you're going to pick one thing you want to do a month, one thing you want to do a week, depending on where you're at in your lifestyle. And you're going to choose that. So I think also for promotion, you have to sort of learn. And it's very different what I do versus what Henning does. I respect people who do club programming so much. Because with Exhale, at the most, we're doing 5 events. And that's a very heavy month for us. Normally it's like 2 or 3 events a month at most. So it's easier in some ways, of course, to like keep our attendees and our fans engaged because they're celebrating it maybe every month or coming 3 times a year or whatever it is. So yeah, I think that's what's changed the most is how do you pace yourself mentally and professionally and for what you're doing.
Thank you. And Daniela, both from your personal perspective as a club goer, but also from your professional perspective as an agent, how much has changed in this new world?
Well, a lot. From a personal perspective and from a booking agency perspective, a lot of things changed that we've never experienced before, especially coming out of a pandemic. I don't think any of us in this industry would have ever imagined so many new artists would have surfaced in the scene. So suddenly we've realized there's been a sort of a discrepancy between the level of the quantity of artists, the quantity of music versus the amount of quality. And quality, I don't mean necessarily putting a not necessarily my opinion about different artists. I'm also talking about the quality of work, because when you come back after 2 years of stop, and so many people decided also to take a step back from this industry, but you have, on the contrary, so many new artists that want to be represented, so many new artists that expect to be given platform, and not enough people with enough experience that are there to accommodate those needs. We are literally in a phase right now in my specific business where we are training. We are training ourselves, we are training the new people that are starting this new business. As well, we are training these artists that during the pandemic had the opportunity to be presented widely, because within a minute with the streaming, you could be exposed to South America.
Yeah.
You could be exposed to anywhere in the world, but then the business opens and the real party starts, and you expect to be touring there, to be promoted there, but maybe that doesn't always work.
Is there a connection? So now we're talking about streamings, for example. People who exploded with streamings, do you see a connection with then bookings and audience that goes to the parties?
It really depends. Again, obviously, you can have a very good streaming, a very good audience online, but ultimately, now that doors are open and clubs are running, people come and want to have an experience. So are you actually able to level up to that experience that you presented in the context of streaming without an audience? Not only this, also, is your music career, your ambition, your vision somehow inclusive? Is it a reference for someone in the long-term perspective? And already now, after how many months that everything is open? 6 months?
Well, we reopened 18th of March. So what is it, like 9 months?
9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, already in 9 months you can see who has more of a leadership and who doesn't, who has a vision and who doesn't.
Yeah. And Henning, from a booker perspective, like what matters in terms of your booking decisions, building on what Daniela said, for example, you look at streamings, you look at social media, you look at other things.
I mean, I think that was the job of a booker anyways already before, right? You have your channels where you discover people, where you check people. It's like digging records, right? Where you dig records in a record store and you dig them online, but also recommendations by people. You know, I think that has not changed, you know, at least for me, you know, because I think that is the job of a booker, to be aware what's going on, do your work, right? But then, of course, like, that's a good point, what Dani said. There is, you know, I think somehow everyone was thinking or hoping, this is like, you know, not really many people will come after, or like, you know, what will the pandemic bring? But then we kind of like got surprised, like how many new talents have been created in a time where there were no parties, but there were a lot of streams. You know, her became such a popular medium, and all the others, like, you know, United We Stream and everything. And, you know, that's a really, really interesting point also, that where do these people then go? Because, I mean, those who have been there before, we remained, you know, but then there was another wave of new artists that always came, and, you know, some leave, but I think the pandemic like brought in a lot more people. And how do you discover them? I think you do this. How do you approach like bookings? I think you still do it the way you did it before. Now, I mean, you have many more streams you can visit, right? So the technicality of the job of a booker, I do think, has not really much changed.
There is more media, let's say, more channels where you find information about the artists.
Yeah.
But I also think, like, for Amelie specifically, she had all this downtime all the time where she wasn't touring, so she was just going through demos, listening to music, finding new artists, presenting new people to us. And actually, XL Records is something that blossomed and bloomed during the pandemic because she had that time and she had that time to go through. And so I think also, like, label bosses and owners had more time to listen and then to present people and to push them with their agencies or with whoever, with their A&R to release with them. So this is another aspect that happened during the pandemic.
Yeah. We definitely benefited a lot of people because there's more diversity, there's more new artists that are coming into the market, into playing to people, and that's definitely like a benefit for many.
And it also proved who really is there for a scene, who is really there for their audience. There's been artists that disappeared, but it's also because maybe once their nights were not possible to be presented in front of a crowd, they didn't know what to give to their audience anymore. There are other artists that realized new project that pushed themselves far outside to what was their role to try to connect to their people.
And if we talk about this, for example, what have you seen working really well for people to promote their work? People that were not famous before, that were not so known before, that have done something interesting during the pandemic that has worked out well. Of course, horror is an example, but that's more the platform. I'm thinking about artists at Jamaica.
Hello.
Welcome.
So I think we need to diversify artists that were already established before the pandemic versus artists that are new. Again, for artists that were already established, I think the main goal, the main aim was to find a way to keep their audience and to keep their community and to define what their what they represent, what's their message, and how to keep them close. I mean, I think one of the most groundbreaking project that has been presented after the pandemic is Slice, which is the project of DVS1. I mean, an artist who literally never used social media, never promotes himself as the center of attention. His main goal has always been an healthy scene, taking care of a community, and this project, which basically redistribute DJs, a part of DJs' income through producers that are the creators of the music that DJs play is the best that could have happened for the community and as well for him to show all the artists that are giving him music that he is there for them and that his career only values if they are there.
It also promotes a lot of artists whose tracks have been played, but nobody knows the names yet. Yeah. So it's a great example.
Yeah, that's
Henning.
a good point. I think that project is something that you can see as something that has, I guess, been most likely he had the thought about it before the pandemic, but then he had probably the time to realize that because coding something like a Slice, I think, was a massive project, and. Yeah, so, but then others also decided to maybe just take, a step back. And sometimes I also think that we all over-interpreted the goddamn pandemic, because it's like, what happened and what would have happened if not? I mean, that's the reality, and I think most of us made it out quite well, so therefore, and then you see it, a lot has went back to pretty much normal, and nobody has ever said that it's going to be like it was before, and then something happened, and that's how that's life basically, right? Yeah. And I think we can be lucky that the most of us has done, have worked in music business before, and we are still here, right? And that also shows a certain strength of the community and also the infrastructure that was behind that was just put on hold, right? So I think, yeah, the pandemic sometimes is a little bit over interpreted, and it, you know, yeah.
It was just like a big pause, big reset.
Yeah.
I also want to give some credit to Kurzarbeit, my favorite German word.
Kurzarbeit.
Kurzarbeit.
But yeah, I also think like for my experience with Exhale, I remember like in March having a meeting with the marketing team, and I'm like, okay, how do we keep an event present without events, you know? And it was just like the engagement and how people keeping them online, and it's about making them feel seen, making them feel a part of it. I mean, this is what it's about, right? When you're out in the club and you're on the dance floor and you're interacting with people on the dance floor, maybe you think you caught the DJ's eye for a minute, you're having a moment, like I hear you, I see you, you know? And how do you present that also online and build around that? And of course, it's much easier depending on the demographic that you have. Are they online? Are they younger? But then in the end, during COVID, everybody was online more often, right? And looking at different platforms and different things and new ways to entertain themselves, or yoga meditation playlists, whatever you're into, you're online looking for it.
Yeah.
But the question is, did real life actually profit from that? You know, because I sometimes think it all happened online, and we did yoga classes online. Maybe I did not, some people did. Then we enjoyed streams, but then the question is, okay, what impact did it leave on real life, right? And then I asked the question on Instagram once. I was like, okay, so you know, people prepare for this 1 hour performative performance, but is it, what also Dani said, is it possible to transfer that, what people have done online in the stream, to a club, you know? That is probably the most, at least for me, the most interesting transfer to observe. Did it work?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people get the platform to play out, and they deserve it, because technically anyone and everyone deserves, you know, the platform, you know. And but then the question, and the determining question is, so do they actually also deliver in a real life setting? Yeah. And you know, time will tell. People who, you know, appeared through the pandemic because of streamings or whatever, a strong social media game or whatever, will they remain, or will they just move on, you know?
If I may add something to this topic, I think this year festival season was the biggest realization of this, because the biggest challenge of programmers, especially of advanced music festivals, was to promote, obviously, new music, new talents, what they think could have been the next new trend. But actually, most of those decisions were literally made on demographics, were literally made on the impact online. And I'm not blaming them for making certain choices. I think it was an interesting time to experience that. And hopefully also from the audience, it triggered some questions of, oh, I was expecting something different from this performance. I remembered it being like this when I saw it online, and now it translates like that when it's on a big stage. Sometimes also surprisingly much better. On the opposite, maybe something that you wouldn't consider, and then it was great when suddenly it was presented in real life. And another aspect that I found incredibly interesting from the audience, because I always like to be in the crowd whenever I experience a show. I think for the first time in my life, I figured that there were in the audience at summer festivals this year a lot of potential new artists, you know, people that attended the event with the attitude and also with the approach of, maybe one day I can be there. This is an interesting question mark.
Yeah. We would see in the next years how much of this stays. Hopefully a lot. And Jamaica, you and I actually had the first discussion during the pandemic where you were putting together a live set. And now that you're playing a lot again, how much of the work that you've done in the pandemic has been transferred to your gigs?
Well, during the pandemic, I actually had a lot more time in the studio, which was great. But I lacked the same inspiration that that I gain when I'm on tour and playing shows on the weekend, or going out and hearing other artists. So, actually, I thought I would have a lot more work done in the studio than I yeah, than I actually did. But I still am in the studio quite often. You know, I go like 4 days a week, and I'm always working. Recently, I took some time off from playing shows, but I was still working on music production. But I noticed that my production is much different from when I'm able to go out and perform and play shows and meet people. I feel that there's more passion in my music production and in my live sets that I'm preparing versus, you know, just being able to perform live streams and staying in the studio.
There is
or
energy,
at home
feedback.
for months. Exactly.
Yeah,
So
and inspiration. That's probably something that everybody's feeling again. Luckily, it's like, you know, you get to hang out with people, meet people, and that gives back, gives you something as an artist.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think, you know, wasn't the metaverse something during the pandemic? And everyone was like, okay, this is changing the world. And like, how many people are probably in the metaverse right now? 20? Yeah. So I don't know. I think we were kind of like obsessed with the thought of that, you know, the world will be completely different. But then we all realized that the actual human interaction in real life is what makes life
Super
and,
important.
you know, clubs as those spaces and safer spaces for all of us to escape that craziness of, you know, the world and the life. You know, that has always been there, and that desire, and we came back to it, and we didn't forget how to party, you know.
No.
And you know, that is the beauty of everything then in the end as well.
Yeah. And talking about safe spaces, and I mean, we're in Berlin. There is a lot of parties, a lot of options. There's a lot of work being done on making clubs also safer spaces. Maybe Jamaica, we can start also with you. Like, what have you seen working really well in making a club or an event like a safe space for everybody?
having an awareness team is very important. On Friday, I played at Trésor again, and I noticed that they have an awareness team there. And I think that really helps create a safer space for clubs and venues.
Yeah. And Daniela, you were saying something.
No, I was talking about Perceptual and a few other parties in town that are always providing these options. And we were talking with my colleagues at the office about how the new audience, the younger kids, now they expect these things to be there. Before, for us, it was an option, but now this has to be there.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because it comes together with them realizing that more education is important, that more information is important, that it provides safety. And it's not just about trying and see how it goes. There is actually someone there for you if you need, and you can ask for help. You don't only need to rely on your friends. And that's also a valuable point. Friendship has changed for the new generation. I mean, doesn't mean that the new teenager don't have friends. It's just their relation to each other. I find it a bit different to the one that we have experienced. Therefore, I think they need reference points to rely on without feeling judged.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, talking from a club's perspective, we have, you know, also where the club came from, and most of you know that the club has to close end of August last year due to a racism incident. It shut down, and then when I and Daniel and my team joined, you know, we have focused and like put a lot of attention to the topic of awareness. And what Dani just said with, you know, people expect it these days, you know, that is to the fact that, you know, the new generation, when they turned 18, 19, that was during the pandemic. There were no clubs. They went to illegal parties, took a lot of G, and never got really like socialized what it means to be in a club environment, be exposed to drugs, take drugs, drink too much alcohol, take too much drugs, and be responsible for yourself. So therefore, the need for an awareness team became so much more important. There's one downside, I think, when you offer too much awareness work. People expect that you take care of them, you know.
In any situation.
In any situation, and they are not responsible for their own actions, because this is what I have learned. When I took the first time drugs in my life, there was no awareness team. I had to deal with my goddamn high myself. But there were friends who told me how much to take and this and this and that. you know. And I think this is something that does not, that, I mean, time will also tell, because, you know, people grow into it. But, you know, having an awareness team is expected, and it, for us at least, it has, you know, we never had to call the ambulance, for example, because, you know, cases that maybe had to, you know, we would have might call the ambulance did never happen, because people, before something would have happened, they, you know, taken to the side, drink a little bit of water, have a banana, cereal bar, and this and that. But I really hope that people understand that this is like a you know, the last exit, you know, and that you grow into being responsible for yourself, because that also is an impact on all of us. You know, people, you know, overdosing on certain things have an impact on the community, on the scene, on the club, on politicians. The enemy is out there, and they're watching people like us, and they be like, ah, these people, they, you know. So as important as it is, we have to also educate the people that, you know, it's your own responsibility, and awareness team can't fix everything.
Exactly, and I think we're talking about providing a safe space. We expect a safe space to be provided by a club or a venue, but we tend to forget that a club, an event, is made by people, so it's the people's responsibility to also provide a safe space for each other.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I agree on that as well. Having an awareness team is not going to fix all of the problems. The people have to be educated and ask for help, and hopefully have a group of friends around them that can give them useful information and point them in the right direction for a positive experience.
I also think just like the nature of drugs have changed, you know, like what they're being put inside, spiked with, like fentanyl, all of these things are really scary. And I know that in the US right now it's very present, especially in the Northeast. And so this also needs to be considered. And like as Henning touched on too, if you were 17 in 2020, you're 19 now, you're going to Berghain for the first time, you don't know anything about club culture. You don't know what's going on in there. You don't know how to pace yourself. You think, oh, I get to come here now. It's so great. I never got to go to a club. Poor me, it was closed down for 2 years, you know, like what? Yeah. And God forbid what happens. So you also have the responsibility, and I think like we show by leadership, right? You know, like I'll definitely see someone on the dance floor and check in on them, and that's not my responsibility, but just to make people also feel cared for.
But that was how it always was, right?
Yeah.
When someone wasn't good, you went up to them and be like, you good, right? And now, you know, there's the awareness team where you can, you know, call them and, you know, ask for help. But, you know, yeah, we have to like, educate people by just like, you know, there is knowledge that you pass on to younger people. That is like in every aspect of life. That is how what is happening. And I think we represent life much more than, you know, probably other you know, situation.
The problem that might be happening now is that a lot of older generations, they used to go to clubs so often, as we were saying before. No, I'm just saying. We used to clubs. No, I include myself. No. I'm not pointing at you, Daniela. It's me. I feel old because I don't go clubbing anymore like 3 times a week. And like I feel like sometimes I'm not going to clubs as much as I was going before, and I think a lot of my friends are not going as well. So the older generation, they used to go before so much, they don't go, and it's hard to transfer that culture to someone if you don't see them, you know.
There is a generation gap, that's true. It has to do also with the way of communicating. You know, we are used to talk. We talking about what we can call a bit older generation. We are used to talk. We are used to meet each other. A lot of the younger kids, they prefer to text each other, even to meet in the bathroom. They text each other, let's meet in the bathroom in a minute. So
in the metaverse.
So it's funny, but it's their way of doing it, and I think it also create. It's interesting for us to relate with that. It's they look at us with curiosity, but again, clubs are so valuable and so important because finally there might be a moment where the phone is out of battery and you don't have any other way, or maybe they have a phone and you need a phone, you know, and everyone can become a resource.
But it's also interesting too because we notice that people are drinking less at parties actually. So where you used to count on a lot of your revenue coming in from bar sales, it's a lot less because maybe they're in Berlin. We all know you're just going.
It depends a little bit on the party. House people drink more than techno people.
True.
That's
For sure.
True. That's for sure. But overall, it is like their kids are taking drugs. Let's be real, you know? Like, they're not drinking as much. And this is also kind of changing in how you structure your event, what you're thinking about in terms of your revenue and stuff also.
Yeah.
There's a million different ways that this shift in the generation is changing club culture.
That's why I highly promote a good range of non-alcoholic drinks in bars and events. I think it's so important. When I came to Berlin and I learned all the options, it was already so much. There was so much more variety than what you can get in Italy. In Italy, you can only have Coca-Cola, Fanta, and water. There is nothing else. And now there is supplements, drinks that also give you energy. There is so many more options, and I think club owners should consider that as a valuable alternative, also to guarantee a healthier dance floor.
Your business partner Misha, he's the first thing he does in clubs is checking the menu, and he's very upset if they only have Coca-Cola. He's like, they have only Coca-Cola. Where's the Biutsisch or whatever, right? No, but I think it makes a difference, right? And also, yeah, the revenue might be less, but also, you know, we have 10% of, you know, people have less money in the pocket, and you know, parties are getting more and more expensive. You know, things in general get more expensive, so there is probably not as much money left for drinks than they might have been before. But also, I think there's a change in, like, you know,
Consumption.
yeah.
And talking about something else now, relationships between artists and managers and of course agents. Daniela, for example, like, how do you foster a relationship with your artist? How do you make them trust you and you support them throughout their career, longer term?
Quick answer and short answer.
You can go as long as you want.
Short answer, keeping them happy by providing enough bookings. That's obviously what everyone expects, but it's not always possible, because, you know, we always hope for longevity and long-lasting careers. Long-lasting careers also means going through phases of being busy and phases of being less busy, and maybe this is where you really see if your booker is someone that you can trust. How you translate that and how you transmit that? Well, you listen a lot. Listening is very important, and more than anything, you as a booker, as a manager, need to make sure your artist can tell you anything. And when I say anything, I literally mean everything that matters in their life. I mean, I don't care if they have a cat or if they have a dog, but I might care if they cry in the hotel before or after the gig. I want to know if they suddenly decide that they are too tired of the style of music that they are playing, or if they are jealous of someone. Even I need to know sometimes if they might think about leaving the agency. That's also important. It's important for the trust relation that's been handled with transparency, because if they trust you, you can analyze the reasons, and if the reasons are valuable and that person trusts you, maybe you can even tell that person, yeah, this is the right choice. Or maybe you can convince that that's not the right choice because of such and such reason. Mm-hmm. So that's my answer.
Yeah. So listening and then eventually create a trust relationship with your
artist. 100%.
Very important. And Jamaica, for you, from your perspective as an artist, when you work with agents, like, how do you see when an agent is really good for you?
I agree. Trust is 100% important, and having a good communication. Like Daniela said, being able to talk to your agent about anything and everything is also important. I think being able to hear back from your agent, you know, at certain times when you really need someone to talk to, that matters a lot. So if they have the time dedicated for you and you build a relationship and trust together, I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, it makes you consider you want to stay with them for the longer term. Yeah.
Yes.
And Liz, like from your perspective, you do it slightly different. You have another angle on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very close with Amelie, you know. I manage her little love child, Exhale. So management is so personal. Like Daniela, I know pretty much, except for when she's touring, it's a little bit less. And that's maybe when she's talking to her booker more, if there's a problem with the transport or something wasn't aligned like it was supposed to be, you know. It's causing her stress. But like, you also need to know how they're feeling, when they're feeling, so you can help manage all their projects with management, you know. Can I ask her to do the voiceover for the radio show today? How was her tour this weekend? Is her cat sick? I do know if she has cats, sorry. You know, like, how is it going with her family? Is somebody in her family sick right now? Yeah. Also, what was her week like? Does she have a personal, so many different things. And, you know, even just before coming here, we had a conversation, her and I, with another colleague of mine, and she's just, there's so much love. Yeah. And it took time to build it. And I also think it's important to like go slow and steady, because sometimes you get really close with an artist that you work with really fast, and that can get, in my opinion, a little bit messy. So it's important to pace yourself. Pace is the word of the day for me, but really like to build that relationship slow and steady, and let that trust really naturally evolve as well. Yeah,
a friendship, essentially.
Yeah, a friendship, but also a few boundaries, you know? I can't tell you how those boundaries are, because they're kind of always changing, but there are boundaries there sometimes too, you know?
I agree, you know, boundaries are super important, especially because it's about respect, and respect is also related to friendship, but it's a different type of respect, because ultimately you are the person providing their living. So they need to respect the fact that they can't exhaust you, they can't cross certain boundaries, because that also means that next time maybe you will put less energy into certain things, or I mean, it's complicated. It's all about balance.
And I think it's always changing. Really, it just goes with the times and the waves and the sketch. I mean, yeah.
Does she ever call you and say, "Hey, Lisa, I cannot do this. It's too much"? Amelie.
Yeah, definitely. And this happened this summer. You know, like this summer was intense, as I said. There was a lot going on, and it was shocking. And there was a lot of yes, yes, yes. And learning how to say no is a practice, also. And then you deal with it. And then she's so sweet. She apologizes the day after, and you're like, "This is actually my job." You know,
to help you.
That's it.
Yeah. And handing a slightly different angle and question, like if you don't have an agent that is helping you with your bookings, for example, or getting an inflow of requests, how do you promote your music in a way that is effective?
Well, I think a lot of work has to be done on the booker side as well, right? That is part of the booker's job. You have to discover the people. That is part of your job. I think, you know, these days a good social media presence is definitely something that is helpful in terms of, you know, being recognized and being seen, having a constant output, podcasts, you know, do your thing, be around, show your face, come to clubs, you know. Often if there's, you know, people hit me up and be like, you know, how about a booking? And then, you know, okay, have you maybe come over, you know, check out the club. I want to feel the vibe of that person. And I really do like working directly with artists. You know, I mean, at some point, depending on the size of the artist, it's, you know, it makes much more sense to go through an agency, but especially people who are up and coming, you know, I really like them to be around, pay their dues to the scene. Yeah. Adam X, if he would sit right here, that would be the thing he would talk about. Pay your dues. You cannot expect to come and like do a great stream and have one sick record and then expect to be booked all over. Pay your dues, because you take from the scene and you give to the scene. Yeah. That is something that maintains a community, a scene, a culture. You know, and I think in the end, you know, if people are, you know, there for a good cause and for the right cause, from their heart, they want to participate in what we all are doing, then I think you're gonna be recognized. You know, but then, I mean, the technicality again of a booker is to do a lot of work, you know, and to discover these people. Yeah.
In Jamaica now, you're putting out also a lot of music. How do you see that your music promotion, for example, is? How do you approach that at the moment? Do you work a lot with your agents to help you get the music in the right places, or you do that mostly like on your own?
As far as releases go, I think it's important to work with a PR team that can help your music to be heard by other peers in the industry that maybe you perhaps look up to. Also having an email list and sending the music out before it's released to select people in your network. It could be friends or people in the industry or other people that you look up to. I think that helps as well. Bandcamp today is a really powerful tool. There's more profit that goes towards the labels and the artists, and I think that's really useful. Also, during the pandemic, there was a lot of Bandcamp Fridays, which are still continuing, and I think this is a great platform for self-releasing.
That makes sense. Daniela?
I also think it's really important to analyze, like Henning was saying, the artist environment. You know, an artist, we're not talking about contemporary art in a museum. We're talking about someone who DJs in front of an audience. So in the old school mentality, that DJs in front of 30% of his friends, of his supporters, and I think this is still valuable. Whenever I present an artist, I often also already tell club programmers, this artist attracts this kind of people. Yep. These are the people that supports him, and usually they even give me feedback about it after the show, and it's so rewarding because you create curiosity. You generate the curiosity in the club promoter to be at the club when the artist is there, to analyze what's happening, the dynamic, a very something to consider. A lot of artists these days are promoting female artists and supportive of the female environment in the music world. Great. Some of these female artists are completely surrounded by a male structure, and then you wonder, and their audience it's made by guys. So how do you change that? How can you spread that message if actually your team doesn't consider the presence of other female except from you? Yeah. So this is also something to consider when talking and when underlining aspects of this scene. It's not just about who is in the center of attention as an artist, as a performer. It's also what happens all around.
That's a very good point, because I think there's a lot of feedback to be collected by promoters and programmers and bookers by your team that is actually running the night. From the night managers to we have an artist care team. They give me a lot of feedback about the artist. Also, like, you know, sometimes artists might have a bad day, but some people are also just not nice people, you know. And I want to know if my colleagues, my team has been treated nice, you know, or if there has been, you know, some issues. That is good also to give feedback to the agencies, because in the end, it's people's business. Yeah. We do business with people, you know, and we want to have a good time, and that's why I think it's, you know, important to be present, to have feedback, but also see that people are actually interested in what you are doing, and why should they come here, or why are they here? Because I have put thoughts into the curation of a night, and I want that person, and ideally their audience, in my club, on my dance floor, and mix them with other people. You know, it's such an amazing, almost a social experiment, you know, to like bring people together, because what we do is we bring people from all kinds of backgrounds together and create something. In the end, you know, we all want to create that magic, but we should realize that we are actually able, with all these small little details, that we can actually work our way towards making magic happen, you know, and it's depending on people. And we talked about it just before we went on stage. It's, you know, there's so many little factors in club programming. That is the running order, who plays before whom, you know, the diversity, the, you know, sometimes also the challenge you present the people. I mean, if I would just go through Instagram and book the top 15, 20 artists, I don't know. First of all, I would be bored, and I can program an AI algorithm to do it for me, you know. And but that is the interest, at least for me, that is the challenge. But also my curiosity in bringing people together in a club environment, in an environment I have been part of for such a long time. First as a raver, then as a DJ, and then being able to put on monthly programs with all kinds of very, very amazing talents, you know, and that is power, and we give power to people, and people give power back to us, you know, and that is the beauty. And yes, of course, there's like the economy of nightlife, and it pays our bills, but there is so much more value to like take from all this what we are doing, and I think this should be the driving force. And then I think
The vision,
a vision.
And like breaking the barrier between dance floor and DJ booth. That's something that's so important, you know? Like we're all, like we said, we're on the raving side, we're on the professional side, we've been in every different department of it, and I think that's so key also to longevity and to success, and to also, in my opinion, like push the vision that I support for the future. No more of this backstage madness. They're not even going to the dance floor, and the people that are on the dance floor are just dying to be in the backstage. Like, kick it down.
That's why we don't have a backstage here, you know.
It's
but
better, no?
also like for us, like our artists are. Well,
But you have a dark room.
yeah.
We have a dark room.
That's true. But that's for everybody. Everybody can go there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's just like, this is really, really key. Really, it's just like, like, and that's also inclusivity. This is it. And like sometimes we can't find our artists where they need to play their sets because they're in the front line, you know. And this is something I really value, and something I think is really beautiful and super important.
Yeah, and perhaps that's a very good way for people to actually have an example, and for people who are behind the scenes to set that example. But just being there.
Yeah, I mean, who else, right?
Exactly.
You know.
And so on that note, I know we're finishing like on a high note. I don't want to break it. I want to ask the public for questions. If you have anything you want to ask our panelists, raise your hand. Yeah, go for it.
Hi, I'm Bernard. Hi.
Hi, Bernard.
I'm a modular performer, and I represent a platform, and we try to promote live set artists. It's called Lost Sonar Collective. And my question would be, what piece of advice could you give like a live performer carving their way into the club scene? Because the club scene, you know, it's all about DJs, and it's like kind of hard for live set artists. And it starts with simple things like, you know, I mean, you need 1 meter of space, you know, stuff like that, you know. And you need a sound check, you know, we never had this before, you know. So what piece of advice could you give live set artists?
Danny?
I mean, I think the main advice counts for everyone, which is be true to yourself and to your identity. What is your message? So another advice that I can give is try to minimize as much as you can your setup, because you know you're going to tour. So playing, performing is also a job, which requires a certain organization and being smart about how you travel, the amount of equipment that needs to be provided, how fast can you sound check, you know, and also depends on the performance that you are talking about. Again, there is dance floor performances that are most of the time easier to set up versus concert performances where you require rehearsal, you require a lot more element and longer timings, but that also goes into different spaces most of the time. So I don't have a specific advice for live artists performing in nightlife, but if that artist think that that's the best way to perform for him, he needs to find the right balance between making it work practically and what he needs to express. This normally comes with a bit of experience and time. We also have, for example, Steph Mendes is a very good example. He was used to be a DJ mostly, and then he simply realized that his best way to express is touring as a live performing act. And he's doing great.
Yeah, but this is incredible.
That's sick. But from a club programmer's perspective, I would say you should scan lineups and see who is putting on live shows. Yeah, because I am a big fan of a live set from 3 to 4. That's like set in stone. It's difficult to find live sets these days. Also, that kind of like tick the boxes of not being too big. I mean, there's, for example, 3D Dancer you might have heard of, like Rachel Lynn and Volruptus and Alex. This is a massive live act, you know, and putting them on stage is a challenge, you know. So that goes along with that recommendation of being, you know, being effective, right? And I really think you should look for clubs that put on live shows, because that obviously means they are able to. And speaking of RSO, we have a big enough DJ booth. We have technicians that are capable. You know, we have professional technicians that know what you need as a live act. If you need a DI box as you know, to just, you know, just make everything perfect. And then be patient and not, and when you don't feel that the venue is the right space where you can present your set the best way, then you shouldn't do it. You know, you should be like very proud of your very own artistic, you know, how would you call it? The vision, or like you as a performer. You should know what you're capable of and know your value, and not do it in any spot just to play a night.
Yeah, preserve it. Let's not forget that this year ADE, Resident Advisor, I think it was, charted the store as the biggest highlight of the entire weekend. It's a live show that lasted 8 hours of live jam. So I think it's an important moment for live performing acts, because also after the pandemic, to reconnect to where we are in our time, the show element is so important. People often want to see a show, and a live act is always a show.
Yeah, that's why I like them in the middle of the night. And you know, you as a live performer know it. You know, you can. It's ideally 1 hour. Sometimes 1 hour, or like more than 1 hour, is very often too long. Keep it like, you know, crisp and sharp. And I would really hope that there would be more live acts, like female live acts, because there's Lady Starlight and Dasha, but it's not that many. It's a lot the guys who do the lives, and then we have Jamaica, obviously, but that would be something to encourage as well. That, you know, but that is probably also something that has to, you know, because you're asking where can I put on a live show, in which club. Maybe clubs should be prepared to, you know, be able to put on a live show, and by that you encourage people, and you tell your friends, and you tell your peers. You know, that is something that structurally I'm missing, the live act. So because everyone is like DJ, because you're like, oh my God, I pay so much money for just 1 hour performance. Yeah, but it's a curational aspect of the night. Yeah. It's part of the, you know, the idea. And therefore I appreciate people who...
So call Henning.
Yeah,
maybe.
It was an indirect hint, you know. And do you want something, or on live sets?
Well, for about live sets, I agree. I think 1 hour or shorter is preferred. But I also do love a live set that's 90 minutes. It really depends on the style of music. For example, if it's ambient experimental, or if it's a techno high energy live set, so there's a time and place for each genre, of course. There is a society in Berlin called Berlin Modular Society, and they do events on, I think, okay, cool. So you know of this already. So yeah, so they do events on Wednesday or Thursday nights, and those are really inspiring as well. It's different than a club night, so yeah.
Thank you. And any other questions? We have time for a couple of more. Go for it.
I guess it's more for Henning. Like, I'm very glad that you don't look at Instagram followers when you're selecting for musicians. So my question for you was like, if I come to the club one night and find you, and I, like, you know, pay my dues, maybe do that sometimes, consider me, like what are the most important aspects that you look for in a new artist, upcoming artist?
Instagram followers. No, I mean, you know, I mean, to be fair, followers on any social media platform is a certain currency, right? And there's tools that, you know, tell you more than just a number. You know, maybe you've heard of something like Chartmetric. You can tell actually where do the people have audience in Berlin. You can have 1 million followers, but no audience in Berlin. That is something that, you know, is kind of like, it interests me because it's ticking a box of like, you know, technology and something. In a club, sometimes, to be honest, it's like, you know, my ears are sometimes, you know, not the freshest anymore in a club night, and then, you know, I just want to hang out, have a drink and listen to the music. So sometimes, you know, to have a first introduction in a club setting is cool, but that's also something personal. At some point it's like, yeah, it's cool, I got it, you know.
No business after midnight.
Yeah. But then if you connect, you know, and obviously, I think there has to be a certain healthy, how can I put it? Maybe a certain healthy arrogance of a booker, you know, because I am a gatekeeper to a place where I present a platform for people, and it's curational, and it's like, you know, it's not out of like, you know, power plays, or, you know, you don't play a game, but sometimes you have to be like more like strict, you know, because there's so many people who hit you up, and especially like friends of friends, you be like, that's it. I make the curation. If I want you, I hit you up, I book you. And but in general, like I said, it's nice to see people around, and I know that you come to our club and you know what's going on, and you don't just want like to perform. So I think it's a combination of personal contact, especially if you don't have an agency. And then if we then transform it, you know, into like a business kind of thing, then it's like through email, through, you know, Instagram sometimes works, but, you know, yeah, I think if the moment is right, if the time is right, if everything is like right, then you get a booking. And sometimes it's like, that's, you know, what we all have to learn in so many aspects of life. We have to be patient sometimes, you know, and time will also tell. But yeah, I like personal contact to artists, actually.
Grab the email and go. Hey, nice to
Bye.
meet you. Get your email. Bye.
A good T-shirt with your email.
Literally. Grab the email and left.
Take my email. Bye.
I had actually, I think it was last weekend, there was like a guy on the main floor coming up to me and be like, hey, yeah, I'm a bouncer in Mbia Club, and this is my friend, he's also a DJ. If, I don't know, if, can we maybe play? And I was like,
Sure.
You know, I don't think so. You know, some people, you know, there's weird things happening, but sometimes this is funny. And then I went and grabbed we have like a business card, the awareness@rso.berlin. And I told him, send an email there, you know, to like also to, you know, sometimes it's not to be rude, but give them an answer to their questions. They might have been high or something, and they might have wanted to, and they thought this is the right way, but then you kind of like, you know, it's also a bit of it's an interaction between two human beings in a club setting that can sometimes be funny. And that's good to have like this business card. And I think, well, I guess he wrote an email to the awareness team. But it also finds my way, or like it finds its way to my inbox then.
I just have to say, like, for producers as well, don't like, I'm so sorry to break so many hearts, don't email info@label.com. Like, it's very unlikely to reach the person that you're trying to reach, and that's heartbreaking. And I have some people that I've been emailing info for years, you know, but like, it's kind of like, if, and I'm not A&R, but if you know how to get in contact, if you know how to get in contact, kind of, you know, and just want to put that out there. Stop replying to automated messages saying we'll get back to you in 3 to 4 days.
That's great. Thank you. And any more questions? Maybe one final one. Take it. Nothing? So on that note, I would thank the panelists. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
It's been a great panel. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you.